A special grand jury has finished its criminal investigation into whether former President Trump and his allies tried to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. Its final report has been filed with a judge in Fulton County. Jurors recommended that the report be made public, but a hearing in 2 weeks will determine if that happens. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis called the special purpose grand jury last year because it had the power to issue subpoenas to force witnesses to testify. Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows were all questioned about Trump's efforts to change the election results. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger also testified. The main focus of the investigation was that phone call former President Trump made to Raffensperger asking the Secretary of State to find him 11,780 votes.
I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. There's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
It's really, again, every time you play it gets more damning every time.
Worse.
He sounds like such a thug on there saying, come on.
There's nothing wrong with saying you just
11,000
recalculated
votes.
them.
Yeah, he's saying he's saying all you need to do is steal 11,000 votes. Come on. Give me a break.
Yeah. Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissmann. He's the former general counsel of the FBI and served as lead prosecutor in the Mueller special counsel's office.
So, Andrew, I have been weary through the years of watching people come on this network and other networks talking about how it's a fait accompli that Donald Trump is going to get charged by a grand jury, that charges are going to be against him, that the prosecution is going to begin. And I've told everybody he's above the law. It's never going to happen. This guy gets away with everything. He can lie. He can cheat. He can break FEC laws. Nothing ever gets to him. I must say, I'm starting to get wobbly on that. At this point, it's hard to see, listening to that call with the testimony that's gone in there, how he doesn't get charged. What are your thoughts?
Couldn't agree more. I have the same view. This is a man who, for decades, has escaped all sorts of civil and criminal liability. And so, I can understand everyone, including you, being skeptical of these sort of predictions. But here, you played the tape. There's other evidence. It's very hard to see that the special grand jury that has been impaneled for 8 months isn't going to find probable cause that the former president committed a crime. And remember, the standard is just probable cause. And that, by the way, is the same standard that a normal grand jury would need to apply to find criminal charges. So I think it's just incredibly unlikely that the special grand jury report won't say that the former president committed a crime. And that means that the DA, Ms. Willis, I think will be really hard pressed to overrule that and say, I'm not going to seek charges. So I don't know if this is the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end, but I think we're going to enter a new phase where we will see criminal charges out of Georgia with respect to the former president on this aspect of what he did to overthrow the will of the people in a national election.
So, Andrew, as you know, the reason the district attorney, Fani Willis, asked for this special grand jury is because it had subpoena power and compelled people like Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani and Senator Lindsey Graham to testify. 8 months later, it will come out with its report. Just mechanically, if you can explain to our audience, what happens from here now? Where does it go?
Well, this is a really unusual process because federally, you don't have sort of two types of grand juries. You just have one. So the initial grand jury and the report that we're talking about is because it's a special grand jury where its function is to gather evidence, as you noted, Willie, to issue subpoenas, to bring witnesses in, and then it can issue a report, but it doesn't have the power to bring charges. But a regular grand jury does have that power, and there's nothing that stops the DA from impaneling that grand jury and presenting evidence now. In other words, the DA doesn't have to wait until the report is issued. So it's hard to know exactly what will happen, but I think that it's hard to see that the DA who has the report now isn't proceeding apace. If the report says that the former president committed a crime, then there's nothing that stops the DA from going ahead and presenting that evidence to a grand jury. That process, just to be clear, can take a single day. Having done grand jury work, this is not a lengthy process. You can take the evidence that you've already presented to the special grand jury and you can give it to the regular grand jury. You don't have to recall all of those witnesses. So you could see charges happening simultaneously or shortly thereafter upon the release of this report on January 24th.
So, Andrew, we should note the former president defended that call that we played at the beginning of this segment as perfect, which is the same word he used, of course, for the call to President Zelensky of Ukraine that got him impeached. So we may see this all public, right? In the next couple of weeks, there are decisions will be made about that, but also underscore to us why so many in Trump's orbit have been the most nervous of all these investigations, most nervous about this one, because it's a state case, and therefore his attempts to win back the White House in 24 or another Republican winning back the White House in 24 wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I think there are two reasons why this is a particularly worrisome case if you are Donald Trump. One, he is on tape. So this is, if you're a prosecutor, you're basically, please press play, and you let the jury hear the actual defendant. And then you have all of the other evidence to contextualize what he was doing. But so he's sort of front and center, and he can't say, I didn't know what was going on, or it wasn't me, or the evidence was made up. That you have his own voice, which, as you alluded to, and everyone has now heard, is really damning. The second point is that it's a state charge. State charges are not subject to a presidential pardon. So, for instance, President Trump, at the end of his term, issued all sorts of pardons to various criminals, including many of his own cronies, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn. They dismissed the charges and then issued pardons. That is not possible with a state charge. So if Trump or an ally were to become president, it is irrelevant to these charges. So these are ones that, if you are Donald Trump and his defense lawyers, you are keenly aware of just how much these could really stick if a strong case is presented to a Georgia state jury.
NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissmann, thank you very much.